Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Sending Ravens. I have the lovely Megan Rose with me. I'm really excited. We tried to do this. What was it, a week ago, Megan, or just a few days ago?
I think like last week, a few days ago.
Yeah. And it didn't record. And usually when that happens, Spirit doesn't want you to have we've said something we shouldn't, or so right away, Megan and I both agreed, you know what? We'll just reschedule because something didn't want to get out there. So we're going to try this again.
Yeah.
So welcome, Megan.
Thanks.
I'm so happy that you're here.
Me too. Yeah, the timing is better, I think, today anyways. So so it worked.
Yeah. And I loved your last video.
Thanks.
And I wanted to start with that. Could you recap for us what you brought? Because you bring some really great info, and I just wanted my audience to hear it.
Yeah, so that was about the Starlink satellites. And those are satellites, that whole system, they're for more than one use. They're not just for internet, they're actually for like global security. Wow. So those satellites are monitored by the Alliance on the Moon, by Space Force. So they're really, really important for securing our planet, for our safety. And I know what the Federation and the Alliance are doing is trying to dismantle the CABAL internet systems because they need to monitor their ongoing operations, and it's part of our security. So those satellites are super important. And I think a lot of people know that the Starlink satellites were in the news. It was reported they were destroyed in early February. Yeah. Well, so when I asked my contact, Valnek, in the Federation, what was that about? He said he couldn't tell me, that all public reports were just a distraction. And that's kind of normal, like when something like that happens, not to get, the real answer. Yeah. But it turns out that those satellites were taken out by the CABAL in Ukraine. So, or the Eastern, I don't know if I can say that, the Eastern Europe situation. Yeah, you can. Yeah, as long as we don't say it over and over, we're good. Yeah. So that's part of the reason why they, we're in this little debacle right now. But yeah, so. Okay. And is that what you brought in your intel when you did your video? Okay, I'll have to watch it again. We're gonna have to watch it again. Sometimes I watch things 2 and 3 times. I'm a little bit slow. I'm a Taurus, so it's like, what did I say? Yeah. But I do enjoy your videos, so that's okay. I'll enjoy doing that. Yeah, so I recommend everybody go to Megan Rose's channel and have a look at her latest video. Another thing I wanted to ask you about, Megan, is what's your going forward with your channel? What do you have planned for us coming in spring and summer here in North America? You know what I do is I just let spirit, the higher beings, kind of lead me. So I don't actually have any intentional, like conscious plans. It's more of like I kind of manifest. How would I describe it? Maybe backwards than some people would think. So I don't usually set like specific goals. I usually just keep myself in a certain energy field, like really balanced, and then manifest that way. So I actually don't know, but my intention is always to bring unconditional love to the plane, to this place. And so then that, it just goes from there. But, really what I want to help people with is, I think looking back over maybe the past year, what I have been working on, I really want to maybe help people understand that we are equal to extraterrestrials, that humans are their equals, that we're all brothers and sisters. Because I think that's really important for humanity and for the next step for everyone to maybe one day we'll meet them, but we have to see the beauty in ourselves first and heal ourselves, and then B, understand that they don't want to be worshipped, they want to be our friends. So I love it. Maybe my little goal. Oh, that's awesome. We've all been learning, like certainly what I've been seeing happen is the universe wants to show us nobody's above us or below us. We are equals to what we used to call the elites. In fact, a lot of those elites don't even, shouldn't even
be considered our equals because of some of the stuff they've been up to. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
So, yeah, I like that. I like that the off-worlders want us to see them as equals, and there's probably tricky ones and awesome, well-meaning ones. Would you say
Yeah.
that was true?
Yeah, the not so well-meaning ones are the ones who have been involved with creating that system of I'm here and you're subservient to me. So they've kind of been part of the problem. So
Yeah.
I think that if we're ever like channeling, this is important, if we're ever channeling or getting in touch with what we think is an ET, if they start to give us the idea that we're cooler because we have ET contact than maybe this person, it could be, you know, like a gray alien or a reptilian or some sort of other energy source, you know, so.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's a good way to maybe gauge who you're talking to.
Exactly. Yeah. And the good ETs, they'll always come to you on that vibration of love. But, you know, part of the problem is, do we really know what love means here? You know, it's kind of sad to think about. But one day I was sitting around, I was like, do all of us even know what that really feels like? Unconditional love.
Yeah. You know, I got to be honest, channeling for years and years with clients, like 35 years, I did feel unconditional love. So when I channel that person's higher self, that's how I knew I was getting it.
Yeah.
Because the love that came through, and it also gave people the impression, who were my clients, that I was capable of that kind of loving, which I can only hope I could be and strive for. But I was actually channeling how loved the people were from the universe. So it actually taught me what that feels like.
Yeah.
By channeling it. So sort of almost a third hand way of learning about what that feels like, and a good way to gauge if you are channeling spirit or not, and or something valuable, right?
I was going to say, I would agree with you. Like where I found that feeling is by channeling from spirit, from the higher self. I haven't really found it, not really, you know, down here.
Yeah.
Maybe from like, you know, family members, but it's a higher energy field when it comes from above and down.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It is different. Yeah. And there's so many versions of love and so many ways to express it.
Yeah.
When you're channeling universal love, it is quite interesting.
Yeah.
It just said you can right away see a difference. I don't know. That's just my opinion. And a self-love, like you mentioned self-love at the very beginning here. I really believe everybody needs to work on that to be able to receive the kind of love that's coming from some of this energy.
Yeah, it's true.
Right? Yeah, we need to work on loving ourselves so we can receive, because our receptive energy works a lot better when we love ourselves.
There's a guilt programming, like when you come in contact with that energy, you can start to feel like you're not good enough. Because that's what a lot of us have been taught. So there can be a block there. So yeah, it is important. You know, what I do sometimes in meditation is I kind of rewind myself back to when I was a child, like maybe age 3 or 4, and hook onto that feeling, because that's you know how when you see toddlers, they're just totally themselves, like don't care at all. That's what I kind of do and express myself that way.
Awesome. Yeah. Go back to that more pure self.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting that the baddies, we'll call them the dark cult, that's why they might be so obsessed with our young ones.
Yeah.
0 to 12, because they want to rob that energy, that essence, that that pure loving essence, because they can't actually seem to get it themselves. They have to ingest it some disgusting way, but I digress. I digress.
No, it's true. They are not able to connect that way themselves, or they've chosen to, like, for example, a reptilian or a gray or the baddies, they've chosen to separate themselves from source through their own free will, through their own actions. So they can't get it themselves. So they target little people and siphon that life force from them. And that's how they get their creative ability, because in order to create, you have to connect to source. It's the creative force. but
Yeah.
they separated themselves from that. And so in order to maybe manifest better, they have to take it from the little people, if that makes sense.
Wow. Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. Wow. I wanted to ask you about, Ashley and I did a video on starseeds.
Yeah.
I also did one on the pay-per-view with Jean-Claude. We did one with Julie, Jean-Claude and I. And I just wanted to add, and we're just, feeling around, but I know you likely know a lot about that energy. I feel like you are one, if you don't mind me assuming. But that's what I thought as soon as I met you. Can you give us your version of that whole energy? What do you think? What would describe a starseed?
Well, I think that there are many people who souls, or some people will call them light bodies, who have another life on a different planet or a different place, and who have chosen to leave that life and basically incarnate here. So my understanding is it's a kind of a lifetime continued. So you will actually have a physical body, because extraterrestrials, even though they're not in a 3D, they might be 5D, 6D. They have actual bodies and are incarnated into a body and have a life. So they will actually leave that body behind in a stasis pod, and they will choose to leave that body and incarnate into a human body. And it's a with the intention of service, to serve humanity. And a lot of starseeds have different life purposes. You can have more than one, but it's to bring that knowledge, that wisdom, that cultural perspective of unity to planet Earth.
Wow.
So, yeah, so it's kind of like, sort of like the movie Avatar in a way, kind of the same concept, but they have, extraterrestrials have science and technology to do that. And it does sound, kind of weird, if you have the perception of everyone is in heaven and then they come here. So it can be kind of strange. But, a lot of this science and technology has been kept from us, but these advanced races have the ability to do this. And this is part of, I call it the Starseed Envoy program. They basically, the intention of it is also to help liberate the planet. And they have to do that from the inside out sometimes too.
Right.
So, yeah.
So do you feel like there's a lot of starseeds incarnated and or chose to come here, having left another physical sort of version of themselves in some other galaxy or some other place, and they're here on the Earth plane? You feel like there's a lot of them?
Yeah, I don't know how many.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. I don't have an exact number, but I do think that there's many of them. Yes.
Yeah.
That would make sense. I think the idea behind it was, let's send as many as will volunteer, because that will give the plan the most success, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no.
And I tell them, we're the how do I say it? I think we're the most brave, because I tell them upstairs, I say, you guys didn't have the balls to come down here. I did.
Yeah, I feel really brave. I feel really brave. And to me, it feels like I hadn't thought of myself as a starseed until I had that interview. I was on that interview with James Gilliland.
Oh, yes. Yeah, he's great.
Did I say his name right?
Yeah.
I'm so worried about how I say names, but yeah, wonderful fellow. And I feel like I had a moment there when he was talking about those off-worlder creatures that have a body like a panther.
Yeah.
Because there's a story in my family that for years I was tormented. Of course, this is the story in the family, by nightmares. I would be awakened every night, sometimes many nights in a row, from about age 3 is what the story goes. So I don't actually have a physical memory. Literally, I can't conjure up a memory of that, but like the family talks about it, right? Yeah. I've heard that I was really difficult and everybody thought, like my parents and the older siblings thought, I was seeing, shadows on the walls, and what it was it looked like a standing panther. And I always, apparently how I described it was a panther standing up and in a standing position, and up against, there was a tall dresser.
Mhm.
So it would stand alongside that tall dresser.
Yeah.
So that's how the story was told, that for years I had these nightmares, and I would wake, the household up screaming because I'd see this panther creature. As soon as James talked about some of the forms they come in are like the shape of a panther, I was like, oh, and standing up panther.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. My mouth dropped right in the video. I was like, okay, I just put two and two together. I was visited by those creatures.
Yeah, I watched that video and I was like, I got a feeling from that too. Got that sort of impression. Feels like maybe they were there for protection too,
Yeah. Yeah. But of course, I would have been afraid of them likely, because I guess I would wake up and start running into my parents' room and screaming and etc. So yeah. And maybe they disappeared because I wasn't getting it or whatever, but I was just a little person. So it's all good. But wow, when you put two and two together, like it seems to me, there's all of these clues. Like it sounds like you've had very literal experiences and you've remembered them, but there's all these clues when you start putting it together, really what's been going on. And it's usually nothing like you thought it was. And our childhoods, like, we're just hearsay. It's just hearsay what really happened, like, unless you have an incredible memory. But, then you start piecing these things together and wow, like, I bet there's a whole lot of people watching here are starseeds. In my opinion, most of the truthers could be. I mean, what do you think?
I agree, because there's something in coming from a different place. It's this, how do I almost say this? Like this warrior type attitude, like nothing's gonna mess with me, like I'm not giving up, nothing's gonna mess with me. I came here to do this X, Y, or Z. It's a strong knowing of what's right and wrong. And like not letting stuff break you. When I was growing up, a lot of people, my family, like thought I was crazy or kind of weird. And I still don't care. So there's that inner knowing, because I think a lot of starseeds understand that maybe the external you can't really trust. It's the inside that is the most trustworthy. And that's that. It's because you're bringing that energy from your home place into this plane,
That was always like, I listened to my inner voice above all else. I have no idea, exactly why, but I think it's because my higher voice was really, really loud. And it was like, nope, we're not learning that lesson. It's not you don't need it. You don't need it. And I would just hear that and go, okay. I didn't focus on school almost at all, unless it was social reasons. I was learning social skills, and thank goodness I happened to be quite socially able. So I got away with just getting by. You know what I mean? I would tell a joke or say something funny to get away with stuff. But also I was quite a likable person. Like, I had a social skill, and I knew, and I was using everything I could to not do what anyone wanted me, but only do what I wanted to do. And I was getting away with it. Like, I just wasn't going to, be programmed. Now that I look back, it was an absolute resist to programming, but I was congenial enough that I didn't seem like I wasn't disruptive. I was socially able, so I got away with it. But I think starseeds have all these little traits, right? Where they can't be programmed. That's how they made it this far. And now they're awake because they weren't programmed. And then you watch other members of your family completely hook, line, and sinker, buying everything that school system taught them, their parents taught them. And you're just like, why would that doesn't even make sense, but they bought it because somebody told them that they trusted. And I didn't trust anybody, to be honest. I was like, I don't trust you. I like you, but I don't trust you. I could like you, but doesn't mean I trusted you. And I literally thought my parents were nice, but this is going to hurt maybe a little, but I loved them, and they're loving and lovely, but I was like, but they're not that bright. Short and long of it. I thought that when I was really young. I was like, they thought I was the dummy. I'm thinking, yeah, you guys aren't that bright, actually.
I'm laughing because I've felt the exact same way. I remember thinking, I was like, I love you, but I don't agree with anything that you're saying. And I would I would actually get in trouble a lot for not listening. And
Yep.
my family was very strict. Like I went to Catholic school and I didn't, I wasn't into the religion at all. I thought it was creepy. And and sorry, mom. And once I got into middle school and high school is when I was really rebellious. But I always made it, I was very social. I was always more into hanging out with my friends. And but I definitely wasn't buying it or wasn't into learning what they were teaching and stuff like that. But yeah, I definitely remember feeling that way, is looking at the adults and being like, none of you, especially when I was a teenager, I was probably a bad teenager, but I was like, none of you know what's going on. So I'm going to do whatever I want.
Yeah. Yeah. So I did do whatever I wanted, but I got a Scorpio moon. So I got to be honest, I was a bit sneaky about it. Like I would just tell them what they wanted to hear and then go do exactly whatever I in my heart knew I should be doing.
Yeah.
That's what I was like. So, yeah, I'm sure they were on to me to some degree, but I certainly wasn't disruptive about it. Right. So I would have appeared to be a fairly easy to get along with person, but insanely stubborn.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's what keeps you though psychically safe too, because if you have and maybe a lot of starseeds might have really good strong psychic abilities too, but that's what keeps you safe, because that opens up a whole nother world once you go into the unseen of entities, but also positive beings that can approach you. And they're harder sometimes to trick or to be tricked, because there are things, I mean, if you're psychic, there'll be things that will come in and try and trick you. And that's, I guess that spunk or that rebelliousness has kept me safe too, psychically, of not being able to be manipulated. And I'll mention this too, when and there may be other ways that starseeds incarnate here, but this is from my own experience. They'll change the DNA of the human vessel so that the soul can come into the body, because the frequencies kind of have to match. And that DNA, it's harder to control because it's from a higher density. So if you have like a lot of mind control, well, all mind control and entities are like fourth dimension, fourth density. We're talking about DNA that has the fifth density and above. So it's a higher frequency. It's harder to manipulate. It's harder to control the mind. Yeah.
Interesting. Like as soon as I catch on that somebody I'm dating or somebody I'm friends with or are going to, here's what I always found interesting in retrospect. As soon as I think, okay, they're not part of my work. So sometimes I wouldn't even know exactly what I meant by that, but my higher self was so firm about, okay, you got to let them go because they're going to block your work. Even if you love them, even if you like them, let them go because they're going. I had to let a lot of people go through my whole life. And I thought I was just bad at relationships, but honestly, I was really usually just letting them go because they weren't going to be supportive enough for what I was doing. Or if I got too attached, my higher self was saying, okay, if you get too attached to this person, your life path changes and we need you over here doing this. Right. We need your phone. Like I literally remember having those kind of battles with myself. And now I see that it's exactly what I needed to do. So I'm glad it happened.
Yeah, looking back, I've made decisions like that too. Like I'll just have this knowing of I'm doing this. This is what I'm going to do because this is what I'm supposed to do. And it doesn't have to make sense to everybody else. In fact, most of my major decision making, everyone in my life was like, why are you doing that? And I didn't really have a good answer. It was just like, I know this is what I'm supposed to do. Like every time I moved, where I went to college, other decisions, I was like, nope, this is what I'm going to do. And, it's always panned out pretty well, but that's how I've made my decisions. It'll just be this feeling, this inner knowing. And I'm like, yep, that's what I'm going to do.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope what we're saying here is helping other star seeds out there understand, like, the soul will be so powerful in the human self. It'll always overpower the ego, is what I find.
Yeah.
Like, even though I do have a fairly big ego this lifetime, absolutely, like a lot of people do, and but I respect it and I give it some play.
Yeah.
Okay, but my higher self voice always wins when push comes to shove. That's how I stayed absolutely on the path. I feel really good about that. Like, my higher self I couldn't even get off the path if I wanted to. Like, I'd get tossed right back on the path. That's what it feels like.
Yeah. Sometimes I've noticed, like, if I go off the path a little bit, it'll be like the tower card, and it'll bring me right back to where I'm supposed to be.
You bet.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's important to acknowledge the ego. Like, we all have an ego, we all want to say at the end of this, I told you so.
Yeah. I definitely got a few people I'm going to need to say that to.
Yeah.
But I kind of, like, it seems to me, you just kind of let a little bit of it strut.
Yeah.
You have to let your ego play a tiny bit, but
Yeah.
you got to keep it in check.
Yeah.
But the egoless here, you're going to be in trouble. On the earth plane, you need that ego. Okay.
Yeah.
And you got to let it strut and have a little sense of humor about it. Even, like, I can watch myself and I'll be like, okay, that response I just had to that comment somebody made or whatever, that was my big ego having a strut.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, somebody will tell me in the comments how really I should have read the cards. And right. But here they are, they don't even know the formula I'm using. Like, every reader has a different formula. Not all cards mean the same thing all the time. That would be the really amateur way of reading cards. It's all about the layout, what the question was, what came first, what did you notice first? And then, of course, your intuition kicks in, right? And somebody will say, oh, this is how you should have read that. And here's the answer to that. Okay. And then usually what my big ego will right away, if I don't catch myself really quick, I'll write back, oh yeah, you need your own YouTube channel and you need to be reading cards for us, because obviously you got all the answers. So if anybody's out there got a comment like that from me, yeah, that's my ego talking right there. But whatever. And I let some of those slide.
Yeah. It's okay. It's okay. I relate that too, like, to my nursing experience when I was a critical care nurse, because I would be like, a patient maybe would give me, like, I don't know, lip or be, sassy with me, and I'd be, sassy back, because you kind of have to be that way sometimes just to keep an even keel. But, I love you, I'll still save your life kind of thing.
Yeah.
But don't mess with me.
What was it like being a nurse? I mean, it makes sense that you would, one of your lifetimes here on this lifetime was that you were literally a nurse. Did you enjoy the work?
I did really love it. Like, there's a lot of things that I miss about it, because I kind of have like a scientific mind too. Like, I like science and learning about that kind of stuff, and I like to heal people. But the whole system is kind of broken. So it got really hard. But I was good at it, and I really, really loved it. And I loved taking care of patients. And I think one of the gifts it gave me is working in the ICU, is watching people pass away. That is something that is super valuable life experience to have, because you realize how short life is and how some of this shit doesn't even matter,
Yep.
So that was something, even at a young age. When did I start nursing? Like 24, 25. I had that experience. So but I loved it. And, even that was one of those decisions that I just made like that. When I quit, the ICU nurses, the old ICU nurses were like, Megan, please don't go. We're so short staffed. But they're like, you're such a good nurse. What are you doing? Like, this is your career. And I said, no, I'm not supposed to be here anymore. I'm leaving. This is it.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the things we do that are like our past things that we used to call careers just really worked, like they teach us things we're going to need.
Yeah.
So STARSEEDS, they'll collect these different ways of working and then they just drop them because they just needed that experience to move on.
Yeah.
Like I bartended for years while I was studying tarot and astrology. That was the only actual legit job I ever did, was waitress and bartend. So a lot of people wouldn't even consider that legit, although in Europe it's considered a lot more of a career, right?
Right.
In North America, they consider it sort of a transitory sort of position, but there's career, waiters and bartenders in Europe. Okay, so it's more respected. But here in North America, no, they in fact, they even say you don't need that much, like you don't have to be that on the ball to do it. Well, that's not true.
Not true.
Because no one's ever waitressed or bartended and had that to be true, because you actually have to multitask, and it's incredibly stressful. And you have to have a lot of social skills to make any money at it. Like if you're not congenial and you aren't on the ball with how you're handling the table psychologically, okay, you can really get yourself into trouble. It's actually incredibly difficult to do. So I just want to say that to anybody who hasn't done it. It's brilliant work. And I loved it. I got to be honest. I absolutely loved it because I'm a people person and I am psychologically pretty smart. So I would work that. I would figure out who to be nice to on the table and who's paying and I knew exactly. You know what I mean? And that's where my ego really got to strut. But I was collecting psychological sort of information, I think, and I was studying psychology while doing that unconsciously. Like I was absorbing all of these how do people function? How do they work? How do you work with them? How do you get them to really come out? I wanted them to really enjoy themselves if I was serving their table or serving them up at the bar or whatever. So you really learn people skills, and it actually really helped years of having strangers come in a little tiny reading room. You don't know who's coming in next. They booked and you don't know who they are. And you sit right across from them and you actually read them psychologically, spiritually together. Okay, so all of that skills helped.
Yeah, I was going to say it's like absorbing their energy, and like the more, like I can relate that to my nursing experience. There's so many people who have different personalities, different preferences, what makes them tick. It's almost, and then seeing how they handle stressful situations, it's like absorbing their energy, and then you start to recognize it when you're doing readings too. But I was a waitress and I was horrible. Like I was the worst. I can't tell you how many times, like at least twice I spilt drinks all over people. It dropped trays full of drinks. I was horrible at it. It is a lot harder than it looks. It really is. Yeah.
It is.
So I always tip very well.
Yeah, I do too. I'm an insane tipper. But I'll also mention if they're really, really nasty to me, I'll tell them.
Yeah.
Right. Because having waitressed myself, you don't do that. You know what I mean? If I'm good, if I was good to them and I got nasty back, I will mention it too. But mostly I'm an absorbently good tipper.
Yeah.
Just because I've been there and I get it. I get it. I know how hard it is. And even if somebody's having a bad day, like if I would have met you and you spilt a drink on me, as long as I could tell you didn't do it on purpose, I'd be way good to you, I tell you. Because I spilled some drinks too.
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Totally. So now, so you're not nursing, like you're basically stepped right out of that?
Yeah.
And your main focus right now, and it sounds like your channel, and just to be in the moment with what you need to bring people. So that's what you were saying at the beginning. You're trying to just be in the moment with what needs to be out there, which I think is exactly what we need right now. Somebody doing, like, that's very good of you to be doing that, frankly, bringing us intel that we otherwise wouldn't be getting. Right.
Yeah.
And also, you have a clientele with your readings as well?
Well, I stopped doing private readings a little while ago, but I'm still doing, I do live readings, like live group readings on my Patreon channel. So I'm
Okay.
doing that twice. I do that twice a month. And then there's also like, I do meditations on that channel and everything. So I'm doing that. And then, yeah, I have my YouTube channel. So I've been posting a lot. There's so much that I want to post, and I made this great video, but I don't think I can post it because I'm afraid it will get taken down. So I'm kind of, it's hard to hold back. I just want to blab everywhere.
Put it on Telegram or maybe get yourself a BitChute to throw it on.
I think so. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to do that.
Yeah, because we need your we need your input. I mean, I really enjoy your videos, and I know a lot of people do.
Yeah.
You're bringing this whole perspective that like I don't get that kind of info that you get. And of course, every single reader has their own slant, but you're needed out there. I wonder if you, could throw it up on somewhere else.
Yeah, I'll try like a BitChute or a Rumble. But yeah. So I'll do.
Or you could take the raw version of it and even throw it up on Telegram. Don't they have videos that long on Telegram?
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. I honestly love Telegram. I can't believe I didn't make a Telegram channel sooner, because I can just say whatever I want on Telegram. I love it.
I do like it too. I'm funny because I treat it more like Instagram. I just like sharing things. Like a lot of people say, why don't you have a more interactive Telegram? But to be honest, I have so many emails to go through every day. I couldn't possibly, now I'm going to be looking through my Telegram and answering. No way. I just like to share things on it because Instagram used to be where I did that, but they shadow banned me so bad. Instagrams, I hope they go down in flames. I'm telling you, I wrote them and said, I gave them a really bad review. And I said, you guys are deep state operatives, and you're working on the wrong side of this situation here. And you're going to be called out. Like it's not cool what they're doing. They're absolutely shadow banning anybody with a different opinion than the far, far, far left.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure that's been almost documented in the mainstream news, but it goes unnoticed by the public for some reason, or the masses. But yeah, they totally do that. So it'll be exciting when that happens. I'll be excited too. Yeah.
There's a lot of, I can just feel how that's about to really shift. Yeah, I really do. I just did a big zodiac reading, one of those big zodiacs I do for March. And I really, really I know it's been in degrees, shifting. In particular, February, really a lot of big breakthroughs and fascinating things, sort of disruptive things like what's happening in Eastern Europe. Anything you wanted to add to that? Anything you wanted to?
Well, I was just going to say too, I don't know, in my video, I mentioned the UN, and the UN is still controlled by the CABAL, but their internet, so the alliance is basically, it doesn't mean they're in control of the organization, but they're basically trying to get control over their internet servers, so they can monitor their ongoing operations. So they are, and then they're monitoring it from the Moon Base, and Space Force is monitoring it. It's part of our a new security system. So that's what they're doing. Yeah. I don't know exactly. I know the UN. I shared that intel that they're in those internet systems. So they change the frequency of those internet systems, and they're monitoring that. I don't know about other organizations that they've done that with. Valnek has said it's an ongoing process, but that's part of the fall of the CABAL. So yeah, it's exciting. So I know that's happening. The Eastern Europe situation. What's interesting is I thought that it was obvious what was going on until I went on TikTok and realized that people have completely opposite perspectives. Yeah. So I've always known that Mr. P is working with the Alliance, and that's basically what they're doing there, and, kicking the bad guys out of that area, so.
But that's because you're an aware person, and
a lot
of people buy the narrative, of course, that Mr. P is a bad guy. And think about it. If mainstream media has been talking about what a bad guy he is for all these years, you better believe he's obviously not what they're saying. Okay. Because they're doing the same thing they did with Mr. T. Do you know what I mean? US Mr. T. I mean, they're just smearing, and they blame everything. Even the truckers thing was blamed on the Ukraine or the Russians. It's like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
It's almost comical at this point.
It's all propaganda. And even the Ukrainian prime minister who's asking Elon Musk send the Starlink satellites. Yeah. I was told, Valent told me that that's a cover story. And I didn't get any more information than that. But what it looked like to me is that they basically, you know, I don't know who's in control of that guy's Twitter account or what, but it looks like to me the alliance was actually kind of like trolling the bad guys, you know, like, look at what we're doing, look at our accomplishment kind of thing. So it's always, you know, there's always like 3 sides, 2 sides, 4 sides to what's going on, you know?
Oh yeah. It is so hard to keep track of, like, you know, and I gotta be honest, it gets overwhelming to try to figure it out, describe what you're getting, like with tarot, like what I'm getting with the cards, to describe that to people. It sounds like I'm simplifying the hell out of it, but there's layers and layers to it. I only simplify it because I need it to read that way, just so I can explain it.
Right. Yeah. So it's as simple as possible so that people understand. That's always my goal, is to get the information, like receive the information that I get and then explain it in a way that people can understand, because otherwise it doesn't mean anything to anyone, you know? Right. Like I could make it sound super complicated, but what would that do for people, you know? Yeah.
It's always been my goal. Yeah.
But I just thought it was interesting that they were so worried about restoring internet to that area when most of the people evacuated, and can they even afford the Starlink service at this point when their country is, you know, in shambles? That doesn't make any sense, you know? Yeah.
Well, I'm sure most of anything up in the mainstream is going to be just propaganda, like you said.
Yeah.
Crazy times we're living through here.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, it's fun that there's people like us, and we have all of our online friends, and yes, it's exciting.
I get a little like sick of it sometimes, whatever, the drama, but I got to tell you, I wouldn't want to miss it either, though.
Yeah, I agree.
Like everything that's happening. I mean, I wouldn't want to miss it or be anywhere else, really.
Yeah.
But some days, of course, it gets you.
I think that's part of like the warrior spirit too. It's like there's a fine line between wanting, you know, everyone wants peace, but it also is fun in a way to see victory. There's this spirit of not necessarily, maybe, I guess you could call it winning, victory, triumph, overcoming the bad guy. And that's something that I think I said this in a recent video. I'm so glad that no one came in necessarily to save us, that we've just had maybe off-world helpers, and we've had the Alliance to help us, but really standing up, or humanity standing up for ourselves, it feels really freaking good, honestly. So that's what I want to encourage people to do as well. Yeah.
When those truckers stood up, I know it's all been twisted in the media and they've been turned into these terrible people, but really the purity of it, you could see it in the actual people involved. Even if there's some background stuff going on, we don't know about, whatever. Literally most people that got involved, it looks like, on the front line of that were just people who literally, what you see is what you get. They just wanted, they didn't want their children to grow up in a society that's completely hostile towards their freedom and their personal choice. That's really, it was that simple. And that was so inspiring. And that's why it was so inspiring for so many people to see people standing up for their personal rights and freedoms, which honestly, especially in Canada, they haven't done for years and years and years. It's like finally they woke up to a whole large part of the population to how serious this is, not just the truthers, but just regular folks, a whole lot of them. When I went down to that border in Alberta, where there was sort of a separate convoy going on at the, what was it called? I can't remember the name, of Coots border. Ashley and I spent a day down there, and they were the most beautiful people, just families and good people. They brought their whole families down there. And there were a lot of them. And that was just the support group to the trucker convoy. We couldn't even get close to the convoy.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I loved the whole thing. Like, I was so inspired, and I was just watching videos of people cheering and singing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I just felt the spiritual energy around it too. It was just beautiful. And I thought it was something that was inspired from up above, for sure.
Yeah.
I just thought it was so inspiring. Yeah, I did. And the unity and the togetherness. What if we had that going?
I agree. Before it happened.
So we kind of lost Janine, and her internet is not working. So I'm going to end the video for both of us. Thank you guys for tuning in. You can tune in to Janine's channel, Tarot by Janine, and Sending Ravens with Janine, and also my channel, Megan Rose, and we will be back with more videos. Take care, guys.